Everyone. I know everyone wants to visit and not listen to me, so carry on. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Jennifer Bramley. I'm fortunate enough to be the city manager of the city of Dunedin. Thank you all for coming this morning. We very much appreciate your attendance to our public input session regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funding. So this is our agenda this morning. We have a PowerPoint presentation that we've prepared for all of you. It should take, I think, about 15 to 20 minutes. And then we're going to seek your input regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funding. We do have a consultant who is on his way, Wood O'Brien. Oh, there you are. They're there. Matt Urchel. Matt, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Who was that? I'm just kidding. So I just want to give you a bit of an overview about why we're here this morning. First of all, thank you for coming to the City Commission chambers. We don't usually have a meeting like this in the City Commission chambers, but we found when we were looking for a venue that we would either have it here or have to cancel somebody's Zumba class. And you know, when you do that them's fighting words, so we couldn't do that. The American Rescue Plan Act, then, what it is we're going to talk about today. I know that that's somewhat of a mystery for some folks. We're going to talk about what the City of Dunedin has been allocated, the areas that qualify for funding expenditure, and how we can benefit the community using these expenditures. And then we're going to open it up to the floor. We today are not going to have answers to questions. We're seeking your input about the expenditure of the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And I just want to kind of short circuit this and go on to the next steps, if I may, because I know a lot of you need to leave here and you have to open up your businesses and do whatever it is you need to do. We're holding 3 public input sessions, the session this morning, one this evening at the library from 6 to 8, and one on the 17th in the evening as well. And that's for, is it the evening? Afternoon, thank you. And that's 2 o'clock, and that's for our not-for-profits. And all of these are open to the public. We can mix and match whatever it is, whatever you can attend, you're more than welcome to attend. We're going to take all of that input from the public and the input from city staff as well, and we're going to put a program before the City Commission. And it's very much like our Penny for Pinellas funding, which is the City Commission, we provide them with a program, projects, the cost of the projects, and then the City Commission adopts the program and staff goes to work. So that is what the American Rescue Plan Act program moving forward will be. We're looking to do that in January, and Les Tyler, our Director of Finance, said yesterday, can you make it the end of January? So since we do have the holidays in between. This morning is what we call a town hall meeting, and according to the City Commission's rules and procedures, it is a meeting that's called specifically for one topic, for one subject, to seek input from the public. The City Commission then will give direction later on based upon that input and typically won't speak during the course of these meetings. They are here to listen. And that said, I would like to introduce to you this morning our City Commission, and they are here. The Commission's in the House. Mayor Julie Warbojowski, thank you. Vice Mayor Gao, Commissioner Deborah Kynes, Commissioner Mo Franey, and Commissioner John Tornga. Also here today, and we can answer questions after the public input session, we have a number of staff who are attending. We have, of course, Les Tyler, our Director of Finance. There's Les, and Les will be, and I will be doing the presentation this morning. We have Bob Ironsmith, who is our Director of Economic and Housing Development. There he is, and the CRA Director, as you know. Want to do the wave for Bob, or what are we doing here? Looking around, we have Sue Burness, who is our Director of Communications, has only been here, 7 months, and already it seems like she's been here a long, long time, the progress she's made. We have Vince Gizzi, our Director of Parks and Recreation. There he is. We have Denise Kelly, who is our new Economic Development Project Manager. And we have Trevor Davis, our Special Projects Project Manager, probably the most famous guy in the house here, right? Everybody knows Trevor. We have Pam Pravitz, who is our President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And who am I missing? Anybody? Oh, my goodness. Jorge Quintas, our Deputy City Manager. How could I miss Jorge? My gosh. If you can't reach me, just go to Jorge. He'll help you. In fact, just go directly to Jorge. That would be just fine with me. Anybody else today? Got everybody? Okay. So we're going to move on then. Okay. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. In March of 2021, the American Rescue Plan was signed by President Biden and enacted by Congress to combat the COVID-19 pandemic economic impacts. So that included support for business recovery, job losses, public health. The stimulus package includes $350 million for local governments that qualified. And so for the Pinellas County, they received $189.3 million. And for the city of Dunedin, we are allocated $18.3 million. The grant funding will be released in 2 payments. So we did receive our first payment on October 8th of 2021 in the amount of $9.1 million. It is in an interest-bearing account in the city of Dunedin. The funds need to be, the second payment is expected there we go, that slide, in October of 2022. The funds need to be obligated, that means encumbered within our budget by December 30th of 2024. So you think that that's a long way away, but in the expenditure fund of capital projects, it's right around the corner. And then they have to be, all of these funds need to be expended completely by December 31st of 2026. And there are periodic reports that we need to issue in the intervening period. And so many of the larger cities, because they're entitlement cities, and entitlement cities, any city over 50,000 in population, they received their funding directly from the federal government, and they received it about 4 or 5 months ago, or maybe even longer. Is that correct, Matt? Yeah. And so as a smaller city, we're a little bit behind that, but we're working really hard to catch up. We've been working with Whit O'Brien. The City Commission approved a contract with Whit O'Brien to help us with the expenditure of the funds and to administer this $18 million. There are 6 categories within the American Rescue Plan Act funding. We call that ARPA. So from here on in, when anybody says ARPA, that's the American Rescue Plan Act. They're in buckets, and they make up the spending framework. And so they are support for public health expenditures for COVID-19. They are to address the negative economic impact to support families. I'm going to read this one. I don't like that. Excuse me. Address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency. And this is the business meeting this morning, the commercial meeting, so we're probably going to drill down quite a bit on that one because that pertains to all of you more than any of these other buckets. The third bucket is serving the hardest hit communities and families. The fourth bucket is replace lost public sector revenue. The fifth bucket is provide premium pay for essential workers. And the sixth is invest in sewer and broadband infrastructure. So just a couple more comments before I bring Les up. The first one is that we've kind of divided the PowerPoint into what we've already done as far as rescue plan goes. As far as expenditure of ARPA funds, there are some projects the City Commission has already approved, and also what is eligible. This plan, as I said, none of this is nailed down yet. We provided some examples to the City Commission of projects that we could do, but as you know, the City Commission has not approved any of these projects to date. Also, in setting up the framework, you'll notice that these projects are really light in infrastructure and those types of things. So capital infrastructure projects, water, sewer, those types of things are embedded within our budget, within our capital improvement program. They're embedded within our penny for Pinellas as well. And so if we fund some of those projects through the American Rescue Plan Act funding, then we'll be able to free up those funds for other capital projects. And so, the program is, actually, it's a very complicated program, and it's something that we're going to have to pay a great deal of attention to, obviously, for the next 3 or 4 years. And we will convey what we're doing to all of you every step of the way. So I'm going to ask Les to come up, and Les is going to talk about those 6 buckets, what we've done in those buckets, and what is an eligible expenditure, and then we're going to open it up for all of you. And then I'm going to come back and close it out. You're going to deal with me again. Sorry about that. So, all right. Les, you want to come on up?
Les, what do you? Thank you, Jennifer. Again, I'm Les Tyler, the Finance Director, and I'm Happy to be here today presenting the ARPA information to you and kind of where we're at today with the ARPA. I'll ask Matt to come up. Matt's our consultant with Whit O'Brien. His team has been very helpful in identifying what's eligible and what's not, so I'd like him up here to kind of assist me through the presentation and that questions may come up today. I'd like to briefly, before I go to the next slide, I'd like to briefly go over some information on this grant that makes it sort of unique. The American Rescue Plan Act is a very unique grant compared to most federal grants. I've been dealing with federal grants the last 20, 30 years, and I've never had a grant like this before at an agency I've worked at. Basically, most grants are allocated through a formal process, a competitive bid process, where the scope of the grant and all the information on the grant is clearly defined, and then cities and counties make submissions for those grants, and if awarded, if you are awarded through the competitive process, it's normally based on a reimbursement process. You spend the money up front, you submit reimbursements, and then 1 to 3 months later, they refund your dollars. This grant's much different. As Jennifer mentioned, this grant is paid up front. We received $9.1 million about a month ago, and this is unique in that fashion. And also, the other thing about this grant that's unique is, in a normal grant, you know exactly what the scope is, you know exactly what's eligible. This is unique because the U.S. Treasury has basically put the onus on cities and governments to make sure we spend the money wisely and properly with an eligible cost. So we're being very careful how we allocate these dollars. One of the reasons we have Whit O'Brien on our team is to help us assist with that. There's also some guidelines I'd like to briefly mention. The U.S. Treasury has put out some guidelines they'd like governments to follow when considering using these funds. The first is be careful creating new programs that add on or require ongoing financial commitments, basically legacy costs. So we want to be aware of that. We may have some of those, but we don't want to add a bunch of programs in that are going to be ongoing operating expenditures forever for a lot of things. You need to be careful with that. Also, they want us to replenish revenue losses due to COVID-19 for the city, to build financial flexibility and restore financial resilience for local governments. Another one is collaborate with other governments to consider ways of partnering with other agencies on how to spend these dollars. And we are working closely with the county and following closely what the county is doing to see if we can partner on some initiatives and programs with this funding. And also the last one is to carefully plan and use dedicated grants, programs first, and save the ARPA funding we're talking about today for other priorities not eligible for other federal state assistance. A good example of that is the bipartisan federal stimulus that is finally getting approved, which provides funding for bridges, roads, mass transit, broadband infrastructure, and other areas. We will look closely at these opportunities to see how we can apply for those dollars through grant processes to assist with and save this ARPA money for other projects. So we're going to be working closely with Whit O'Brien to do that, to make sure we're trying to get as many grants as we can that are out there for different projects. I also want to mention that on October 5th, staff presented to our City Commission as a workshop item an update of the ARPA Act. We presented much of the information that we'll be going through today to the Commission to kind of let them know where we're at project-wise, what we've identified that's eligible. What I'd like to do is go through each of these categories that Jennifer just mentioned in more detail and share that with you and talk about what our city's done, like Jennifer mentioned, and also some things we think we could do with the funding. So this is the first category, which is support public health expenditures. And this is big picture to respond to COVID-19 and broader health impacts of COVID-19. When using these funds under this program, the recipient must identify a need or negative impact due to COVID-19 and also identify how the program, service, or other intervention addresses the identified need or impact. Some things we've done in this category is we've offered COVID-19 vaccine pop-ups sites on March 21st and then again on April 15th. We also had a booster event on October 25th at the city, and we plan to have another event in late November, and the flyer for that event should be going out this week, my understanding. Some other examples in this category would be contract tracing costs, personnel protective equipment, and mental health services. Now, some things that we can do in this area is The fire department has a mobile command vehicle replacement that they would like to have. It's a very old vehicle, and it's sort of not as, the technology is not where it should be. And we could replace that vehicle with updated technology and ensuring the safety of personnel as a potential allowable use of these funds. So that's one that's being considered by the city. As Jennifer mentioned, this number 2 is probably the one that we're going to focus on most today, because it does fall much more under the small business and business umbrella. And in this one, just generally, this is in direct response to the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The ARPA recovery funds can be used by the local government to provide expansive assistance to individuals, households, and small businesses and impacted industries. Assistance to households also that face food, housing, or other financial insecurities. So some areas, key areas that support this is local travel, tourism, and the hospitality industries. So some things we've done regarding to this. The city has offered signing bonuses at a job fair, which is allowable under ARPA, and there may be more of those in the future. We've had one. There may be more down the road. Support local travel and tourism, hospitality with the marketing task force and the alliance. Special event assistance, which has been approved by the commission on October 7th, and also temporary outdoor dining. And on the marketing side, I want to mention that we will seek ARPA funds to continue our efforts to collaborate and support our business community with marketing dollars through the Marketing Alliance, formerly the Business Recovery Task Force, and through the job training efforts. Also the Chamber of Commerce, the city, the DDMA, and Visit Dunedin. And some things we could do in this category. This is a pretty broad category, and we have more things identified at this time in this category than any other. The first one is we could provide additional commercial facade grants to small businesses citywide. That's one that is definitely being considered. The next project is we're having discussions with the Chamber of Commerce for business support services or a hub on the second floor of the chamber. Another thing we're looking into. And the next project, these are some city staff proposed projects that were discussed with the commission on October 5th. One is a Clearwater Ferry Service contribution. That's a project in our budget, in the 22 budget. This is supposed to roll out in 23. Actually, it's been postponed a little bit. In 23, it's supposed to roll out. And our city contribution towards this for operating cost is estimated to be about $50,000 a year. And the cost of this service will be shared by the city of Dunedin, Clearwater, and also the county of Pinellas, based on revenue hours served for the ferry. And also want to mention the ARPA funding would also pay for capital costs of expanding the marina dock area, which is something that is being considered, expanding the area where the ferry comes into our marina. So those are eligible also. Another project is the Downtown Looper Service. This project is to explore a Looper service or services to be a people mover for downtown to address parking and traffic issues that we have in the city. The estimated cost of this service is still being determined. Staff is working on that, and we're bringing that to commission in the near future as far as what that might look like, but that's one that's being considered as well. And the next project is a Highlander pool replacement. The initial stage of construction is to include at a minimum, the replacement of the main pool, zero depth entry into the pool decking, and the associated mechanical and filtration systems of the pool. However, it may also include elements such as replacement of the bathhouse. And over the next 6 months, the Parks and Rec Department, Vince Gizzi, and the rec staff will be working with a design consultant that they've have in place, and will be working on a master plan which could have additional features and could be phased in as funding becomes available in the future. And the last project in this category is the golf course capital improvements. The Dunedin Golf Course had a sustainability plan done by NGF Consulting, and in that plan they identified capital improvements that needed to be done at the golf course to make it, to get it in good condition to where it would attract golfers to want to come to the area and play it. The improvements include green enhancements, drainage improvements, and other golf course improvements. Also includes clubhouse improvements and patio enhancements as well. So that's another project that's being considered. So that covers the projects in number 2. As I mentioned, there's a lot of projects in that area. And the third item, eligible area, is serving the hardest hit communities and families. And funds can be used to address the disproportionate public health and economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic and hardest hit communities, populations, and households. Under this section, local governments may use unique support on services within a qualified census tract to families and households or geographical areas disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Some examples of this is affordable housing and affordable housing assistance. And things we've done, we've had pop-up vaccines, which was mentioned a little bit before, and we also have a project, an affordable housing, workforce housing project that's in our 22 budget. It's currently funded in the penny fund, but we are planning, what it is it's a $650,000 contribution from the city for an application that we've sent to the Florida Housing and Financing Corporation grant program. It's a competitive state tax credit program application for affordable housing. If we're successful, our contribution is $650,000. The rest would be paid for by investors and tax credits. The proposed project would consist of 70-plus multi-unit affordable housing apartments. And one other item that we can do is also provide aid to Dunedin Cares in this category. And the next section is lost public sector revenue. The pandemic hit the public sector hard. It hit, as everyone knows, the nation hard, businesses, small businesses, and everyone. But from a broad standpoint, many cities had to slash spending, and it definitely undermined the recovery first during 2020. Our city is no exception. I want to mention that our general fund is our main discretionary fund. It's where most of our departments are paid out of. Our Parks and Rec, our fire, police, all of our support departments are paid out of the general fund. It's sort of our main operating fund. And we found out about, as you know, the pandemic started middle of March, and then we beginning in mid-March on, we had reductions in revenues for sales tax, other state revenues, revenue sharing. We also had some large reductions in some of our program revenues. Our Parks and Rec departments and library, for instance, we shut down for a period of time. Then we gradually opened up, but not near normal. So obviously revenues were impacted. So just big picture, our projected revenue loss in 20 and 21, that 18-month time frame is around $2 million in the general fund, just very close to that. If you look through the September 30th, 2021 time frame. The impact was not as severe as some people thought originally. It was, some people thought originally that sales tax could go down by 50%, from April through the rest of 2020. It did go down by 10 or 15%, but it was not as bad as it could have been in some areas. And assessed values held their own. As everyone knows, assessed values have managed to do real well through the pandemic thus far. But I want to mention that, we in 2021, we just started a budget process, just ran our numbers and just getting ready to meet with Jennifer and go through the department reports, and the pandemic started. So we kind of had to just start from scratch and sort of kind of revamp everything, because we knew our revenues were going to be down, so we had to reduce our expenditures down as well. So a little more information on this category. A local government will allow cities and all state local governments to calculate its loss of revenue and provide that computation to the extent of the reduction in revenue and use by a formula that's provided by the U.S. Treasury that compares the 2019 base year, which is pre-pandemic, to your actual revenues in 2021 and up to 23 if a city chooses so. So we have projected in our 22 budget revenue recovery dollars in our budget in the general fund, the gas tax fund, penny fund, and marina fund. I want to just mention that they are in our estimates and they are estimates and forecasts. And the next is premium pay. Provide premium pay to essential workers. This is recognizing the continuous work of essential workers during the pandemic. The funds can be used for premium pay directly to city employees or through grants to private employers for essential workers who were physically present at their jobs, including those who work involve protecting the health and well-being of their communities. The city is in the process of developing a program to provide essential workers during the pandemic and provide premium pay to departments such as water, sewer, and solid waste, who we deem essential workers, and others who are deemed essential at the city. The fire department did receive hazard pay back in 2020, June of 2020, when this thing first began, but those other essential employees and other departments have not received any hazard or premium pay thus far. So we're working on a program for that right now. And the sixth category is our water and sewer. This is the infrastructure category. And this ARPA made the infrastructure category pretty narrow. I mean, they could have made it more broad. They basically have done water sewer projects and broadband. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities there, but those are the ones we're focusing on with this grant. So the funds can be used in a variety of ways regarding water and sewer infrastructure. Water and wastewater projects are eligible and align with the grant. And pretty much any projects that are eligible under the Clean Water Safe Revolving Fund program or the Drinking Water State Revolving Program, either one of those would be eligible under ARPA. So it's a pretty broad list of what's eligible in that category. Also, broadband investment is eligible in this category. It's the wireline infrastructure that would provide a 100 megabyte per second symmetrical standard of speed, maybe put in areas that include unserved or underserved citizens or businesses. So they recommend recipients pursue fiber optic investments where possible. So things we can do with this, in this area that we've identified is, first, we have a project that's called Septic to Sewer Connection Program. That's one project we're considering, asking the commission to consider. And the city and surrounding area has 230 septic tanks in the city of Dunedin. Some of these are, some are in the city and some are actually in the county, but we still provide service to them. Leaking and malfunctioning septic tanks are a public health and environmental issue. This program will provide physical connection from the home to the city system and the abandonment of the existing septic tank for the property owner. So that's another one that we're considering. And also, the next project in this category is a fiber optic project. Fiber optic and Wi-Fi project that we're considering. And this would provide installation of new fiber optic cabling infrastructure, software and hardware, and equipment to the public internet Wi-Fi zones. And we would have proposed, in this proposal, would be Wi-Fi zones in public parks, and also it would connect critical water, wastewater systems that would allow more security for the wastewater system and reduce the possibility of cyber attacks for the water and wastewater systems. So this would provide public Wi-Fi in city parks. As I mentioned, city marina. There would also be Wi-Fi zones in city facilities, such as the senior center, fire stations, an example, and others as well. So that's what we've proposed to date. You know, staff working and things we can do and we have done. And what I briefly mentioned, there's some clearly defined ineligible uses of this ARPA funding, and briefly go over those. And the first one is you cannot offset tax reductions. If you have a tax reduction during this time frame, you cannot offset it with this funding. They will not allow that. They will not allow it to be deposited into pension funds. There's no contribution or offering to pension funds. Cannot fund debt service. Cannot fund current debt service with this funding source. And also, you cannot fund legal settlements or judgments. And the last is they do not want the deposits going into a rainy day fund or a city or county reserve accounts. You know, they want the dollars spent. They don't want it to be used to just for an agency to build up their reserves, if that makes sense. And community engagement, and Jennifer mentioned this some, but you know, We have our input session this morning, and then we have another meeting, input session this evening at 6 o'clock at the library, where it'll be a general public resident meeting. And then we have a meeting on November 17th, a not-for-profit meeting with them at 2 p.m. on November 17th at the Dunedin Public Library. And then we also have a survey that Sue is working on, and the survey will be available soon through a third-party survey company. We're in the process of putting that together. The survey will be available on our website and accessible through our social media platforms. And next steps is community feedback that we're getting today, and through and also our meetings later today and tomorrow, and then next Thursday. And again, want to mention again that we plan to bring back probably early February or late January, like Jennifer mentioned. We plan to bring back the ARPA plan to the commission, taking all the public input we get today and the other 2 workshops, and then also and provide those results to the city commission for their input and direction. And that kind of concludes it. Now we're going to move to our question and answer, and I'll turn it back over to Jennifer.
Do you notice how he worked in early February? Thank you, Les. I know that that's a lot of information for all of you, and it probably took us about 3 or 4 months to actually get here. There are many interpretations, if you will, of the Act through Whit O'Brien, lots of information flowing between the state and, the county and the cities as far as what those buckets are and what the eligibility is, for all of the projects. But one of the things and one of the reasons why we have Whit O'Brien on board almost, as quickly as we could get them on board is because we want to ensure every project is eligible. We want to be out of any sort of a clawback from the federal government for an expenditure that was ineligible for this act. And so Whit O'Brien is also, Matt Urchel is here with Whit O'Brien, and they are actually the county's administrator as well. So we're working in lockstep with the county on that greater, bucket of $89.3 million. So with that, a lot of information, as I said, I'm going to open it up to the floor. And, as the small businesses within the city of Dunedin, really, I think the question to all of you is, what can we do to help you? We've explained what's eligible, what's not. And essentially, that bucket number 2 is tourism and economic development. That's what that bucket number 2 is. And that's kind of the framework for all of you here today. So please let us know, what it is that we can do to support you through the pandemic and through your recovery of the pandemic. So that said, I'm going to ask you actually to come up to these microphones. We are, by the way, doing Facebook Live. And you're keeping an eye on the comments too, right? Sue Burness is keeping an eye on the comments. We're Facebook Live. So we will ask that you step up. We are recording it. Step up to the microphone so everybody who's watching can hear you as well. So anybody want to come out? I see Tina over there. I see Jack Badles here. Jack from DDMA. Thank you for coming. Anybody? If you could identify yourself, too, when you step up. There's no wrong question, no wrong answer today, so.
Hi, I'm John Schmidt. I own Butterfly Footprint on Broadway. A couple of questions. One, about the Wi-Fi project. I was wondering, was there any plans to make Wi-Fi available all throughout downtown Dunedin or just at city buildings?
It's city buildings. But city facilities. However, we'll write down that you would like to see it available for downtown as well. I think that's
that would draw some people.
That's an effort that we've tried once or twice before, as you may know. So we will record that.
Okay.
For sure.
And I do like the Clearwater Ferry project, but I was also thinking there should be a better express trolley. I know the Jolly Trolley goes back and forth between downtown, Clearwater Beach and downtown, but it's very slow. It stops at downtown Clearwater. It takes, there's like a 20-minute wait in between trolleys. And, we've had some tourists tell us that they'd shut off the trolleys and there's no AC. So during the summertime, it's like brutal. Yeah. And there should be like an express, I think, that would link the beach and downtown. That would draw more tourism, I think.
Like a bus rapid transit between the beach and downtown. Okay.
And are there any plans for a parking garage?
Actually, the parking garage, the funding, $2 million, was reallocated to the Gladys Douglas property. We are in the process of purchasing the lot behind Casatinas, and we have test fitted it for a parking garage. Yes, it's not budgeted currently, but we are looking at that for a parking garage in the future.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much, Josh. Okay, just one thing on the trolley. You had said something about more stops, less stops.
I was agreeing with him. What he was saying is that so many people that come from another town, the trolley goes from here to Tarpon and from here to there. But in the phase of the people coming from Clearwater to here, they have to stop at the aquarium and wait for the next one. And they usually stop and just go back and wander down the road, which gets them hit on the road. So I'm just thinking it would slow that down. I agree with them 100%, just a direct from there to there. Because this one goes here and stops and waits, and this one goes to the lower beaches and stops. So one that goes directly from there to there, I think would be complete positive, great idea.
Okay, thank you. Tina, how are you?
Good morning. How are you? So I'm Tina from Casatinas, right here on Main Street. And I wanted to start this just with telling you this is what happens in my household every day. I wake up and say, I had an idea. And my husband says, no kidding. Constantly. He's like, when am I going to retire? So I actually come here with 3 different ideas, just because I know that you throw some ideas out, some stick and some don't. The first 2 are a little bit more altruistic, and the last one is a little bit more just specific for our businesses on my block. So my first one I brought up in the last meeting, which was make Dunedin even cooler initiative. We're already cool, so how do we get cooler? I'm sure that most of you know that most of the infrastructure in a downtown city center, from asphalt roads and dark rooftops and parking lots and reduced greenery due to growing developments, traps heat and drives up temperature. Did you know that's from at least 5 degrees Fahrenheit during the day and 22 degrees at night? Resulting in discomfort and illness, even death, for elderly, kids, and people with health issues. How does this relate to our economy? Well, it's just too darn hot to shop, let alone eat a wonderful, spicy, sweat-inducing dish at Casatinas during the summer. So I think we should put a comprehensive campaign together to investigate and apply technologies and implement programs which would actively work towards reducing our temperature in our city center. The city could provide grants for businesses and civic organizations who help to achieve this goal. How would we achieve that? I'm going to throw some shade here. Specific grants for utilizing indigenous trees and plants. We just had I don't remember the group that came and presented before you, and they were awarded for changing the plants to be indigenous to the area. So we could work, yes, we could work with them, which I think would be great, to create structures like green walls, garden rooftops, lusher landscaping. It could be like a tiered grant. So if a building created a green wall, this much. If they created a rooftop, this much. If they replaced landscaping to be more lush, this much, etc. We could also replace parking areas with cool pavement technology. There's so much information via the internet about how to create cooler pavements. You have City Hall under construction. You have a new lot under consideration. You have a hotel across the street from us. We could provide grants for them to change what they currently are thinking to cool pavement. The last part of this, also by providing shade structures throughout the downtown. A lot of people come downtown and you have areas where there's no shops for a block. Maybe there's the church or the park, but they're not walking into those structures. So perhaps we had shade structures where they could sit. Maybe it has a mister, maybe it has solar on the rooftop, and the solar has power for people to charge their phones and their computers so they could take a little rest there. In areas where seating was not, a bench or a shade structure is not conducive, perhaps we could look into a shade sails, which also reduce the temperature up to 20 degrees. The third part of this cooling the town would be to get people to use bicycles and pedestrian-friendly ways to access the downtown as much as possible. one of the greatest ways to do this is to replace our employee parking needs by getting them to use Uber or bicycles. The issue with that, as you know, is if you ride your bicycle to downtown in the middle of July and you need to go to work, you arrive sweaty, smelly, and a wrinkled mess, which is what happens to our staff. So they don't want to do it. Imagine where we are right now, replacing this building with a multi-story structure that was a bicycle park. You pulled up to the bicycle park. It had some type of app that you would lock your bicycle. You could go into self-cleaning restrooms where you could freshen up, perhaps take a shower, steam your clothes, get ready for work. Maybe you're early. You could go upstairs to the shared workspace that you have a membership for, where you could sit and work on something for school, something for your children's homework, whatever it is. We don't have any shared workspace in downtown, and I think that is something that's really crucial and important to the future of our downtown, to have areas where not only could people just come here to work and not have to pay an exorbitant rent, also people that were working and had a 2-hour break would not have to leave the downtown and come back. They could just come over here, get their work done, take a little rest. There maybe is a cafe, maybe there's a rooftop garden as well, tying in the rooftop garden area idea, so they could go sit up in the rooftop. Maybe the food from the rooftop is subsidizing the cafe below that is selling the roof-to-table food, etc. There's so many ideas here that could be explored, so all I'm looking for is somebody to investigate this, and I'm willing to be on that commission or project. So that's it for the cooling our downtown. The next is, and I did bring this idea a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure to go on record because I do think it's an amazing idea, is to create a cryptocurrency for Dunedin, the Dunedin coin. As we all know, cryptocurrency is our future. At least I believe so and have put all my money there, so I'm hoping so. Miami, now New York, some small towns out west are creating coins for their city where citizens buy into the coin, the money goes into the city coffers, it's used to improve the downtown and reduce taxes. I just think it's definitely worth hiring a consultant to look at this idea to be in the forefront of technologies that are up and coming. And the last is grants for businesses that will be impacted by any construction projects in the next 2 years, 2021, 2022, and 2023. Normally this is not an issue for most of us, but considering we just had the largest financial impact ever in our time in business of 30 years here, we are so excited that Main Street is going to be re-landscaped in front of our business in, I think, a year's time. We are so thankful and grateful for that, but it definitely is going to hurt our business. And having lost over $500,000 in the 1 year that we were closed, well, the 1 year that we were impacted from COVID, and still continuing, to know that our sidewalk will be torn up, people will not be able to access us, parking will be difficult. It would be really nice to know that there might be some money to figure out ways for people to enter the businesses safely and carefully, and possibly to offset the losses for that difficulty. That's it. I'll have more if you want me to come back anytime. Thank you so much.
I want to give you some rapid fire feedback there.
Sure.
So, a lot of what you talked about in the front, or the first piece of that, right, which was a cooler downtown, but also just, green, safer streets. The infrastructure package that was just passed actually contains a lot of sort of micro grant allocations that are anywhere between $1 billion and $10 billion nationally. With it is promoting resilient operations of transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation. It's a program called Protect. They've allocated $500 million nationally for that. Those are going to be competitive grant programs. They actually do look at multi-jurisdictional connectivity. There's another one that's Healthy Streets, which is getting small allocation, but it's planning dollars, about $25 million. There's also stop threats to pedestrians. There's increasing mobility of aging and disability. There are many of these things that could be cobbled together.
Nice.
And one of the implied focus of a lot of these transportation initiatives is resiliency, and not just resiliency of infrastructure development, but also in connectivity and servicing, certain qualified census tracts, to which you actually have one of the larger proportionalities of qualified census tracts inside the city. So those are the things that we're going to be feeding to the city so that they can look at them. I do want to warn that we're talking about multi-year initiatives, right? Where these programs are going to take multiple years to get developed at the federal level and then dispersed, and may be competitive grant programs. But at the bare minimum, we're going to position the city to actually potentially compete for those by working with the different city departments. If you want to, you mentioned that like you would take up the flag and run with it. So happy to share that information with you, but keep a close eye on this infrastructure package. There are some really innovative programs that the city could leverage. And since they're so obscure, the competition pool might be limited, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Sure, and I think that's wonderful. First of all, you're much more eloquent than I. I have like PSTD when I come here for some reason. I don't know why. I can talk in front of thousands of people at festivals, and when I come here, my heart starts racing. I think it's from when I came in 30 years ago, and I was really young and used to come in here, and I had no public speaking. And so it just, my body reacts in a certain way.
Well, we think you did great.
Thank you so much. But I just wanted to say really quickly that I do think with all of the development happening right now, we definitely should look at the bicycling aspect of it in a building possibly as soon as possible and not be waiting, for these things 10 years down the road or whatever. That's all.
Yeah, there is even an allocation for the bollards.
Right. And maybe tying it in with that loop ring that you're talking about, maybe the bike park is there, picks up the people, they come down on a people mover or whatever. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we live in very exciting times with both the ARPA and with the infrastructure funding coming down, where it seems like things are possible now that weren't possible a year or two ago even, especially during the height of the pandemic. So, Sue, do we have any comments on Facebook? Okay. Just really quick, we will, I promise, get around to everybody, but I did promise some folks who couldn't be here that we would read their comments. Go ahead.
Yes, we do. We have actually Gregory Brady from.
Who's that? Who's
I
Gregory?
wonder who that is. Yes.
Never heard of that guy.
Yes. He says, just a thought, would our data mining project be eligible? What we found from the initial pilot is that it will provide guidance data to help retailers set better hours and days. Additionally, this would help landlords guide new tenants and set them up for success.
Mm-hmm. So, it's a kind of open-ended questions whether it be eligible or not. I don't think we can answer it right now. We need to research. I think that Matt and Les would really need to understand what that program is. But we'll note the question for the record and respond. And we do know, Gregory, we know where to respond. So we'll, and, by the way, actually housekeeping as well. I hope you all wrote down your email addresses so that type of a thing, if we can't answer it here, we can answer you via email as well and notify you of additional meetings that we have moving forward. So any other comments, use of the ARPA funding? Yes, go ahead, if you come up.
We're Mark and Happy Jordan from Happy's Bayou Bites on 431 Skinner Boulevard.
Our city has been noted as being a walkable city. I mean, I think we got an award for this, it's been written up. That is, unless you're trying to cross Skinner Boulevard. The past 6 years, we witnessed 16 people get hit. The last one was hit last week and killed. We would like to see some of this money go towards that.
I know it takes a long time to build an overpass, I get it. But if we could work with the state, since it's a state road, and put those yellow lights to red and do flashing red stop signs on the trail, I think that would help.
So yesterday at 7:30 in the morning, Deputy City Manager Jorge Quintas, former Deputy City Manager Doug Hutchins, and myself met with Ford Pinellas, and they have the money, if you will, the federal expenditures for transportation within the county. They're the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and also Pinellas County was there as well. And we discussed some remedies for that intersection to be implemented as soon as possible. We had a very good meeting. I'm not really willing to let you know right now exactly the options that were put on the table since we're still working through them, but you all are going to see some improvements to that intersection very, very quickly.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. I know it's on everybody's mind, so we really appreciate that. And also, my dog keeps on stopping at Happy's because you gave him a treat one time. So. Come on down.
Few people Tammy, I'm Tammy Seasonmore.
Hello.
I lived on Skinner and I live on Balfour Bass and a longtime resident of Dunedin. I work for the Toronto Blue Jays and the Rays, obviously, sure, the Rays. But,
The Rays and the Jays.
And it's a long story. I'm the seamstress, so I have to deal with all of them. So, but my concern is that this whole meeting, and my concern was about everybody that went through COVID. So on the night COVID hit, it was St. Patrick's Day, and the Blue Jays shut down, and this and that. So my job was shut down through baseball and everything. And from what I understood when I read the whole about this was how to put everything to the small businesses that lost everything. And thank goodness that 2020 I was allowed to work a little bit at the Trop because they can't go without their uniforms being seamed. But you can build overpasses and you can build this and that. But I think this meeting and what this is about is to give it to the small businesses that lost everything during the pandemic. And I'm just saying that if we're going to spend it anywhere, we should look at the very small people that make this town the town and focus on them.
Okay. Thank you. That's very good input. Thank you. This is the type of input that the City Commission is here to hear. Thank you. Anybody else? I know that none of you are afraid of public speaking, because I've spoken to all of you, except for Tina, and I never knew that she was, so. I'm not just here. Yeah, right. Just here. And I'm not here, but everywhere else, so. Okay, anybody else? Yeah, that's all right. I know it's hard to say things like that. It really is. I know it's difficult. It's been a hard year. Yeah, sure. David, we know that you're not shy.
Well, I may be in this case.
Uh-oh.
My name is David Ring. I'm a citizen provocateur, I guess is one way to put it. I'm a gardener, and I've been living here for quite some time and watched the changes and love this city. And it's amazing how much good has already been done and is already in place. And this is a fabulous gift and a wonderful opportunity. And even though it looks to me, based on what was said here before, the money's already been spent in some ways, it is about not the little people, because I've met some profound people here. They're not rich, they're not famous, but they're not little people by any stretch of the imagination. What I would like to see is that some portion of these funds go to what I would call seed money. So instead of requiring more grants and more money, like plants, you put the roots down, you put the seeds down, and you just care for it either through voluntary effort or by rehiring some city staff, because they're a crucial part of what makes this town as good as it is. Like plants, there is an amazing amount of things that you can learn just by observing plants, and it doesn't stop there. Animals, insects, and the rest of it. And part of the problem with the current education system is it's all about the little screen or the screens. We need to get adult and children's association with natural things like forests, like our parks, and where nature is kind of the driving force as opposed to man's organization, man's order. There are small business opportunities. I would like to see some more new small businesses come into town, as well as support for the businesses that are already here and have been hurt or are struggling. And these people, you know, Greg is a perfect example, are great citizens and very helpful and have usually wise and good ideas to share. I've always learned something when I've been in his company. And I love what our lady from Casatina had to say. And I'd like to throw out an idea for her. In Texas, there was an architect who developed a dome of basically wrought iron. Now, we can't do that here, but we can put simple walkway covers. And he grew vines on this, and the vines would create lovely leafy shade during the hot summer months, and it gets hot in Texas. And then the leaves would fall off. So yeah, you've got a little cleanup issue there. But then it's all open, and the sun comes in, and the house gets warmed, and they can do whatever they want to do with their electrical or other aspects of it. If you combine that with this a little misting system where you don't drown people, you just have a little hint of higher humidity and spray, and as that mist evaporates, it creates a cooling effect. I'm also into cooking and some other things, and one of the interesting things she said to it, people don't want to come out of the heat and eat hot food. Technically, a lot of the cuisine of the world in hot climates does involve capsicum or hot peppers or sources of heat, as well as spices. And there is a medicinal aspect to this as well as a flavorful one. And there's a possibility that, like these chili cook-offs and things where the hottest chili wins, that's not necessarily constructive, but a sixth flavor may well be adding a certain amount of tasteful, if I can use that word, heat to the food that is produced by the local restaurants or by the food trucks or by the other things that are happening here. And finally, I've been studying bees, and there's a lot of lessons to learn from bees. And one of the things that should be a takeaway by everybody here and everybody in this city is that the individual bee is fairly helpless and has a certain job and just does that job and tries to do it as well as it can. But the hive is another thing altogether. And to the extent that the bees come together, each with their own thing that they're bringing to the hive experience, there is something called the hive mind. Maybe that's not a good term, but the whole is definitely more than the sum of its parts. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So our employee chili cook-off is coming up soon. I need some help, so. I haven't won it yet, but no, thank you for those comments. They're very good comments. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. Anybody else? Jack, I knew you were going to come up, and I'm happy you did.
Jack Batesall, I'm the president for the Downtown Merchants Association. And Tina, where is Tina still here? I'm with you. It's a weird thing. I speak in front of thousands of people, but every time I come into a city chambers thing, my heart starts going for whatever reason. It's happened to me for years. I don't know what it is.
Happens to me too.
Years and years. A couple things. I think the first thing is that even though we're having this meeting and this input session, I think it's important that all the businesses know that you have organizations that are there to be able to voice. So even though you might not come up with the idea now or you're listening at home and you can't be here today, Pam's here from the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here from downtown Dunedin, and we also have our collaborative now with Visit Dunedin, the city, and our organizations. So even though you can't come, please come to us, even if you can't be here today, so that we can be your voice back to the city to be able to help with this. So that's the first thing I'd like to say. Second thing is that as we take a look at where these funds can go, I think it's really important, kind of similar to what he was saying about putting a seed there so that something can grow. I think over the years, the city has grown significantly. We all know that. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the businesses themselves, putting themselves forward in a small business. It's tough to put your life and your family on the line to be able to get a small business going. And a lot of that growth has been done through those small businesses, through the organizations that the small businesses pay into. And I know that the city has given some funds in the past to all of our organizations to run events, to do certain things. The CRA was developed many years ago to be able to help with the development. But what I'm trying to say is that what really needs to look, we need to plant a seed. We need to take a look at what we can use these funds to do so that there's a longevity of funding, there's a longevity of projects that can be given to the organizations to be able to help continue the growth. And I want to almost use the word reward them for what they've brought the city to. We know that cities are here to be able to function a city and to be able to help it grow. But really what it comes down to is it comes down to the residents and it comes down to the business owners that put their money on the line to help grow it. And it's time for those businesses and the city to reward those individuals by coming up with some type of a marketing budget that is used on a case-by-case, year-over-year basis to be able to help our organizations be able to fund so that we're not scrambling and seeing if we're going to go broke on an event, and we want to be able to continue that growth. So what I would ask is that we look in the programs that could be revolutionary to keep that money going, and look into those funds so that the funds can be there on a year-to-year basis for marketing moving forward. So,
Okay,
that's all I'd
thank
say.
you, Jack.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. So as Patty comes up, there's one thing that I wanted to clarify that David said. I think we got Patty and then Pam. I think she beat you standing up. But David had said it looks like the money is spent or something like that. I want to be very clear. It is not. There are two projects, the Affordable Housing Project and the Special Event Seed Funding, essentially, which paid for the city services and paid for the sheriff as well, for the special events, to get them up and running again this year. But I want to be very clear, the City Commission has not allocated funding beyond that to any project. They're waiting for this public input session and the other two to follow and for us to put together the program. So, I'm sorry, Patty, go ahead.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
Pat Miles, 944 Michelle Circle, Dunedin resident since '06, have been in the city since 80-something, my parents have been. I work with an organization, a business called GoTonight.com, and what we do is we market all the live music in the area, which are the onesie, twosie, single musicians, duos that had no place to play, had no place to go, and are still struggling because the restaurants and the places that they go to are still struggling. So that's just a group of people I want you to keep in mind that obviously need some form of budgeting, funding, back pay, whatever can be done. Again, the organization is GoTonight.com. Thank you very much.
Jennifer, can I ask a question?
Sure. Patty? Could you,
How that works, all the artists that were out of.
hold on one second. We're not, yeah, you need to come up. Okay.
All the artists that were out of work during the time of COVID that entertained all the town and did all this and all that, who, when they didn't have the place to play their guitar or do this during that, they were completely, because they don't have a 401k, they don't have this, they don't have that. And all those artists were literally devastated. And I totally agree with what Pat was saying, because just, you take that one thing away from what held this town together. We call it Dunedin because the livelihood, because the artists, because the little guy that stands on the corner and acts like Michael Jackson periodically. The struggles every single day to pay his bills because that's what he does. So I agree 100% with Pat. The during that time and every bit that we lost, that didn't have a place to play, didn't have a gig that Saturday. That's what this grant is for, I think.
Okay. Thank you. Matt?
I wanted to contextualize it a little bit. And so through your organization, do you have a sense of how many performing artists that you represent, or just broader the city actually has within its boundaries?
A number?
Yeah, just ballpark.
A number that actually live in Dunedin or play in Dunedin?
Yeah, I mean, both is fine. Just overall order of magnitude estimate. Yeah, I'm just trying to contextualize it. I mean, obviously, look, we're in a city hall that's surrounded by this amazing art. Arts and culture is a key element of the city, but just understanding, what that looks like. Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 150? I think that helps city staff make decisions as well.
Absolutely.
I'll get that information to you.
Okay, thank you. Pam? She's not nervous when she comes up here.
I'm not nervous in the least. I just wanted to basically say that I agree 100% with what Jack said. I also talked to the mayor earlier this morning, and she was a little disappointed that there weren't more businesses here today, and I agree. But I also know from the many meetings that we hold, it's very hard to pull people away from their places of business to come and say what they want to say. They do communicate with us a lot, and we pass a lot of those things on to you. And I think that I personally have passed on some messages, but just to reiterate a couple of things, the merchants, the people that the retailers, I guess, really downtown are looking for some support, and they're meeting on a regular basis, and there are definitely some things they want in the form of, lighting and signage and whatnot. And I think that's something worth looking into in with this program. I also heard a couple of weeks ago when we had Trick or Treat, which, by the way, was a roaring success, I heard.
Yeah.
But that particular day, it affected a lot of retailers, the street being closed all day. And I talked to a lot of sad people. And so, as I think about that, it's a catch-22, but perhaps we can look at ways to lessen that impact. Maybe close the street later, or the biggest problem was the police out on the street screaming, "Move your car now, or I'm going to move it for you," which I know that some people have had some conversations about, but it was really upsetting to me sitting in the chamber listening to that happen. I just felt like I wouldn't want to go back somewhere where they were doing that. So, I don't know what we could do. I also know that people who tried to get into town that day, I had people come in to the chamber to pick up some things. They couldn't even get close enough in any way. And I myself know that it was very difficult to get around. So that's something else we need to think about in the future. Because when we talk about, event funding and whatnot, events help us a great deal. But it doesn't help everybody. And then the last thing was marketing, which Jack touched on. I think that was the biggest thing that the organizations felt like we could do to impact the whole community, the residents, the businesses, downtown, 580, everybody, was to do everything we could to get people back into downtown. I think we did a pretty good job, but I do believe that marketing is expensive, and I think that is definitely something we need support with. The end.
Thank you, Pam.
Again, not nervous in the least.
No. And I do meet with the North District Commander at least once a month. And as discussed during lunchtime a couple weeks ago when you and I talked about this, I will convey that to him. So, Tina, you want to come back? So Tina's coming back.
Tina's coming back.
Okay.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to. One of the most important things that I left out of that I had written about the bicycle park and all of that is to help the small employee downtown or the small business owner by providing grants for that. For instance, if we had, they had some type of app where they could check in that they've ridden their bicycle or used an Uber. So let's say 80% of the time they bicycle, 20% they Uber because it's raining or it's dark, it's not safe, there's an event, something. And then they would be reimbursed that money. So that way they would learn to see, first of all, they would create a habit. Secondly, they would see the financial impact on not using their car less. And 3, they would be rewarded, which would reduce, the impact to our parking downtown. So I just wanted to put that in because I did forget that. That's the most important part, is that we are helping our citizens.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Sue, is there anybody else on Facebook? Nobody else on Facebook? Okay, anybody else? In our public input session, a reminder then on the 17th that we will have another session with the not-for-profits, and tonight we have a session at the library from 6 to 8 as well. Same material, but if you want to come, you're more than welcome to come to listen to it twice. I know it's so exciting for all of you, but anyway, okay, anybody else? And you can always write in your comments if you think of something later on to anybody sitting here. Everybody knows Bob, everybody knows Trevor. You can write to me, whatever it is that you want to do, and we'll convey it to our finance department and Wood O'Brien. So anybody else? Yeah, go ahead. Come up, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Dorr, and I own Citrus Styles on Broadway. And an ongoing issue is, everybody on Main Street is saying, why don't businesses stay open longer on Broadway and also on Douglas Avenue? And the answer is very clear. It's watching the visitors here go, they're like ants going east, west, east, west, east, west, east, west. So we have tried very hard at the chamber and with the DDMA to develop some kind of signage program. And, in my opinion, I think all of the signs in the city need to be replaced. The entrance to Broadway, signage at Douglas, we look like Key West or something out of 1970 with the brick facades or the arrows, the wooden arrows pointing because no one sees them. And we all suffer because of it. And the businesses have all agreed if we had the business, we would certainly, I for one, would love to be open till 9 o'clock, 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. That would really help. And, Gregory has mentioned the data mining, and I don't think we need data mining to, see that the traffic is not on Douglas or, on Broadway. I know that's my home is on Broadway, but I speak to the larger group in Dunedin about getting more appropriate, updated, and the most important part is lighted signage. So at nighttime, I'm not saying a McDonald's lit arch, but something appropriate and beautiful, artistic that really speaks to our town. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, really good comments. A lot of really, really good input today, and we certainly appreciate it. David?
I'd like to address the comments of the last speaker. Yeah, I'm going to.
David, I'll concede you that, but we do not want a back and forth between the folks. It's input, right?
I'm throwing out an idea here, and that as an alternative to signage, as an alternative to marketing, consider hiring or having possibly a volunteer on the corner, the key corner, where the traffic is just going east-west and you want to divert it north-south, who is shilling, and that's kind of a negative term, but they use it in New York very effectively, and has maybe lists, I say lists, stickers, coupons, whatever it is, that will direct people to some or all of the businesses on any given side of the street for some modest premium, which would be a cost of doing business anyway and could possibly be tax deductible.
Thank you. All ideas, all good input. All right. Anybody else for the group? Keep an eye out on the survey, if you will, and then we'll ask the Chamber and DDMA to help us be sure to disseminate that throughout the community. And that said, we are going to adjourn. Again, thank you so very much for coming. We very much appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this City of Dunedin government meeting. If you'd like to review any part of this meeting or watch any previous government meeting coverage, you can watch these meetings online anytime through the city's website, dunedingov.com. Stay connected with everything Dunedin. Follow the city on this channel and on the city's Facebook page, through Twitter, and on the city's YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching this Dunedin television production.